It was finally done. A lot of planning and a lot of work, but I finally had the keyboard that I was dreaming of for quite a while. I have made videos about my slight keyboard obsession before. There's just something about the satisfying physicality of different key switch mechanisms that's both incredibly fascinating on a technical level and soothing to our tactile lizard brains. After a while of experimenting with various loud and clicky offerings, I started preferring quiet, tactile or linear switches a lot more for everyday use. And 4 years ago, I went into a slightly more controversial direction by buying a Topre switch keyboard, the Leopold FC660C to be exact. If you're not familiar, Topre is a Japanese engineering company founded in 1935, known for manufacturing electrostatic capacitive keyboard switches since the late 1970s. These switches are used in famous Japanese keyboards like the HHKB or the Real Force line. While some debate their classification as mechanical switches due to the involvement of rubber dome mats, Topre switches feature a dedicated slider assembly and a coil spring underneath said domes, distinguishing them from basic office keyboards. So let's truly give this grey little understated wonder the glow up it deserves. So what's the plan? Well, there's a few things I wanted to upgrade or improve. The FC660C is only wired and still uses a mini USB connector, which for high-end keyboards in 2024 just doesn't cut it. For this, I bought an aftermarket controller board that incorporates USB-C connection and Bluetooth functionality with a port for a small battery. I've also been oogling various thick aluminum cases being created aftermarket for various high-end keyboards out there. My Leopold was no exception, so I bought the Show 66 aluminum casing for it. Beyond this, I also wanted to get color and aesthetics just right for me. So I bought spray paint to give the casing a fittingly grey tone with a rough texture to it, something that I really like in a lot of the pictures I've seen online. Lastly, I also really needed to add some wood accents. For that, I bought 3 wooden keycaps to adorn the keyboard on either side. To make these MX style keycaps work, however, I also needed to order some Topre MX sliders. And while I was at it, I also got a better set of rubber dome mats, springs, and specific lube to increase the smoothness even more. Going back to the case for a second, it's not hard to see that this precisely milled aluminum housing doesn't have space for a battery. Additionally, the placement of the USB cutout is reversed from the stock case, so that the Bluetooth connection button of the new controller points into the chassis. To fix both of these issues, I asked an acquaintance of mine who has access to a CNC mill. I got some space cleared on either side and a precise cutout done for the Bluetooth switch that I had previously desoldered from the board. Maybe a bit overkill, but certainly a good solution. After I confirmed that all the components fit correctly into these modifications, I decided to get a head start on painting the case before moving on to modifying the keyboard itself. To make sure the paint would stick to the slick aluminum, I first sanded both parts down with 2 increasingly fine grids of sandpaper, before cleaning them off with water and alcohol, followed by drying at fresh air. Luckily we had a spree of great weather, so I set up in the backyard to paint both halves of the shell. I didn't capture enough footage of this, but first came a few layers of primer, followed by the chosen textured grey color, and finally a few layers of matte clear coating. The rough texture of the paint could have been a bit more uniform, but I was still decently pleased with the result. So let's get the actual mod going. To begin, I grabbed the keyboard and removed all keycaps to give them a well-deserved bath. Going into this, I knew I would embarrass myself because after 4 years of usage I still have not thoroughly cleaned this thing. Let's tread carefully. The disassembly is a relatively simple affair. It's best to use an old ID card or a set of plastic prying tools to pop the clips holding the top and bottom together. There is one screw underneath this warranty void sticker, but where we're going, we don't need no warranty. Now all I had to do was remove the plastic casing and disconnect the keyboard from the controller. From here, there are a lot of screws on the back of the keyboard PCB that need to be removed so that the metal plate and slider assembly can be detached. This reveals the top of the PCB with the rubber dome mats and springs. I won't be reusing these, but I will need to clean the sliders and stabilizer bars, so I simply pop them out of the housings and put them into the soap water with the keycaps. Speaking of soap water, I of course now needed to clean the metal plate to remove the years of grime that had accumulated. While I made a lot of progress, it seems that some of the elements that got in had partially eaten away at the black coating, so that even scratching these spots lightly revealed shiny metal underneath. It's not ideal, but it's clean enough and it'll suffice for now. After soaking the keycaps and sliders for a while, I gave them a rub off and a wash in fresh water before leaving them to dry as well. Once ready, it was time to reinstall the sliders into their housings. In this case, I'm replacing 3 of these sliders and their housings for aftermarket Cherry compatible ones. But regardless of what kind I'm installing, I will first lube the inside of the housings with GPL 205G0 lube, which seems to be a common recommendation for Topre. I simply coated the 2 diagonal contact points of the slider lightly. It was my first time doing this, and I did overdo it slightly, so be sparse in case you want to try this yourself. Once lubed, I just popped the sliders right back in and made sure they all moved easily. For the larger keys, I first used some thicker XHD BDZ lube that seemed to be a good choice for metal on plastic. I generously coated all contact points of the stabilizers, then added the slider over the hooks and finally snapped both back into position. Now let's get back to the PCB. I ordered 45-gram replacement domes and these gold volcano springs. The domes were in a 1x4 arrangement, unlike many sections of the original, so I tried to be extra careful with alignment and cutting. After some trial and error, especially with these darn tangled springs, I had all contact pads covered. Now all that was left here was to carefully lower the slider assembly on top of the PCB and gently screw everything back in without causing too much one-sided force. All sliders seemed to move as intended, so one of the major parts was done. Let's shift our attention back to the aluminum housing. Unlike the stock plastic one, the PCB and slider assembly get screwed into the top casing with these 6 wide-headed screws. There's a bit of wiggle room here, so I tried my best to center it correctly. For the lower half of the housing, it was now time to install the controller board. I first mixed up some 2-component epoxy and glued the previously desoldered button into the precisely milled hole. Following this, I used a small piece of a plastic bag to make some simple isolation below the controller board before screwing that into place. Then I just cut some thin wire to length and soldered them between the button and its original pads on the controller board PCB. I continued to strip the wires for the battery and the connector and soldered those into place as well, before covering them in heat shrink and fixing the battery into place with more epoxy. Now all that was left was connecting the ribbon cable between the controller and the main PCB and closing it off. The moment of truth now came as I plugged the USB-C cable from the keyboard into my laptop and fired up a keyboard tester. To my relief, all keys worked flawlessly and the thick aluminum did not prevent the Bluetooth signal from working either. It all worked out and I was stoked to put all the keycaps back on, especially the custom wooden ones. It was finally done. A lot of planning and a lot of work, but I finally had the keyboard that I was dreaming of for quite a while. Just goes to show that if you set out to do something that fascinates you, no matter how much of a niche it is, it brings out your motivation in ways that many other things won't in your life, and we all deserve to cherish and share these moments. But with all that said and done, there's only one thing left to do. Show you guys some typing action to close this video off. If you've been watching this far, thanks for sticking around, and feel free to ask any questions or share your own keyboard projects or ideas down below. Take care.